r/AskReddit. What is something you know but you're not supposed to know? My dad had cancer and didn't want to tell anyone. My mother told me and I had to pretend that I didn't know. My great-grandparents were also brother and sister. I don't want to believe it but I totally do. My parents regret adopting me. A family member is HIV positive. Doesn't want rest of family to know. When he broke down and told my mom. I overheard. She has passed and he has no idea I know. HR once sent me a list of wages for everyone in my department right up to the VP. It included my boss, my boss's boss, etc. At first glance, it looked harmless. But they had only filtered the list by job title so I wouldn't see anyone above me. I told my boss and I'm pretty sure the person who sent it just got to do Excel better next time talk. That my, not married to my dad, mother enjoys threesomes. She's not the most tech savvy person in the world and accidentally posted a threesome request publicly on Facebook. That my dad wrote several suicide notes. How my parents met. Mom was a stripper and dad just happened to go there. Just tonight. My friend who I haven't seen in a long time invited me to get drinks after work. Then cancelled because she was too tired. I found the photos a few minutes ago of her and some mutual friends out for drinks. So apparently I wasn't invited and she found a better option. She didn't realize I'd see the pictures. My mother-in-law got drunk once and told me that my sister-in-law has always been a real CNT. And that if she could go back she would have made my father-in-law wear a condom on the night they conceived her. My dad killed himself almost 20 years ago. At the time my mum told me it was because he was having gay affairs with people and he couldn't live in that sinful lifestyle anymore. Turns out she cheated on him. And that was what sent him over the edge. I only know this because I was finally able to read a copy of his note last year. This was in the 90s. Remember having a family computer? My little sister got caught looking at porn and my dad installed a tracker, changed her password. The tracker caught a few porn sites and my sister got in trouble for them. My sister was hanging out with me at the times the tracker said. And my dad was the only one who knew her password. My dad used my sister's computer account to watch porn and then framed her for it. Edit. Fixed computer. Don't type while falling asleep. Folks. My boss's salary. I was working in his office in the night as my desktop crashed, way back in 2004. His salary slip was lying around on his table. Saw it and was astonished at the money he was making. That my uncle's son is not his son. His then wife was banging her cousin and boom. Baby. To this day. My cousin doesn't know and treats his dad, who raised him as if he were his own and had never said a word about it to anyone but me, like shit because of the lies his mother spread about him. I kind of want to tell him to do a DNA test so that he'll know and maybe, just maybe realize his mother isn't the saint she made herself out to be. Edited to add. He knows his son isn't his because he is completely infertile. I might be a year older than I and everyone else have been made to believe. I was flipping through an old baby book of mine that I found when my family was moving and found an ultrasound dated in August the year before I was born. With my name written above it. My birthday is in September and the baby in the picture was very developed so there's no possible way it's just an early ultrasound. On one hand, my mom is mentally ill and always had attachment issues with me growing up. I know she had issues getting pregnant and treated me like she had to protect me with her life when I was little. It would make sense that she would want me in the house with her for an extra year. I also developed really early. Learned to read and write months before everyone else my age. And got my period when I was 10, not super uncommon but still on the early side. On the other hand, this seems like an extremely difficult and illegal thing to do. There are other possible explanations. Maybe the ultrasound date was misprinted? Or maybe my mom had a miscarriage. That would be another thing I wasn't supposed to know though. The restaurant I worked at had some pretty solid sweet potato fries. They come frozen in a bag. Everyone thinks we make it in-house. I was accidentally given access to all salaries for a large hospital. Finding out some doctors made $80K and others $800K was pretty eye-opening. My supervisor is really close to getting fired. Upper management isn't supposed to talk about it, but they do. Probably because we'd all quit if we thought she was staying. She sucks. For Christmas my stepmom bought my dad a pretty cool custom sports jersey with the number 04. When my fiancé asked her what the number stood for, her reply was to represent our family. My 2 daughters. Him and myself, completely leaving me out of the equation. Edit. Thanks for the platinum. The support from all of you is great to hear. You're all great human beings. Never expected to get support like this from strangers on the internet. My Bill has an affair with a man while his wife was pregnant. The school I'm contracted to work for are being audited by the gov because a lot of the administration staff have been using it as a way to make easy money while doing the bare minimum for the students. It's one of 2 deaf schools in the country. That my mom tried to have CPS take my daughter from me when she was born by claiming I used drugs while I was pregnant. I was 9 years clean. She tried again when I was diagnosed with cancer. You would be amazed to see what doctors actually put in your medical records. My grandma has been a hooker most of her life. I just recently found out that my youngest brother, 20 years, is not actually my dad's bio son. My dad has known that for 17 years. He's never told another soul because he loves him so much. He loved him more than he hated my mom. My parents were in court every other year or so because my mom wanted more money. Or for him to see us less. Or not see us at all. There were times when she kept us from him for years at a time. Crushing his soul to the point where my stepmom would have to drag him out of the closet. Where he cried for hours because he missed his kids. He continued to pay child support for 5 years after me and my other brother were over 19. And to this day continues to pay for his college education, Penn State. My father is a fucking saint. And I wish he knew I know about this so I could tell him how much I admire and appreciate who he is as a man. And I can only hope to be half the parent he didn't have to be. My mum let slip that my grandfather and his brother used to rape her and her twin sister repeatedly. What makes it worse is that my aunt has Down syndrome and produced a child from one of the rapes when she was 15. So my cousin is also my uncle. My mum was the first to notice her sister may have been pregnant and told my grandmother, which resulted in my mum being flogged so bad she couldn't go into town for weeks because her face was a mess. Mum let us all slip when my boyfriend and I were driving her home. She was blotto. Such a fun car ride. My boss at a place I used to work would go on road trips with a crew of products installers. They'd spend the night sharing a couple of hotel rooms. The boss would take pictures of his, all male, employees while they slept. He is unhappily married with 3 grown children. There is plenty of evidence that he is gay, but deep in the closet. We all wished he would just come out and make everyone's life easier. That my mother slept with several of the men in the neighborhood during the time my dad was very ill and literally dying. Mom and dad always have sex 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday and Friday 7 PM or after work. Edit. Whoa. Thanks for the silver. Bless you. Spent a day getting drunk with my father, who I'm not that close with and hasn't really been involved in my life much even though he lives 1 street away from me. Found out that the true reason that my parents split when I was 2 years old was due to my mother sleeping with my father's brother while my father was in prison. Also learned that my father used to beat my mother. They both used to do drugs and shady shit. And also learned that my father had the chance to have joint custody of me, but he didn't bother going to the several court dates that were made to settle the matter. The last one hurt the most to learn. You can learn a lot of secrets when you get people drunk. But some things should just be left buried. My dad has another kid in Thailand, I think. I had someone message me on social media in broken English with his name saying they were trying to reach their father. I was a freshman in high school and I panicked and never corresponded with them, and 8 years later I still feel strange about that. I have a copy of a private investigative report on criminal conduct that the local DA unsuccessfully sued for to use in a criminal complaint. As a result, the subject of the report is still practicing because he was acquitted. I legally can't do a thing with it even though I know he's still working with young people. Just found out recently that my Gma, who I have taken care of for the last 7 years, doesn't want me to have a dime of the $100,000 life insurance policy she has. Even though she would have been on the streets without me. Feels great. Edit. I'm very sorry for not responding. I was asleep. I have posted about her behavior before. She is a narcissist and likes to talk bad about me to her children. I pay the bills. I clean the house. I do everything and she never even asks how my day is or if she does. As soon as I get a few words out, she interrupts me and talks about anything she can get out of her mouth before I walk back outside. I cannot enter the home I pay for without announcing myself, and I cannot leave without her asking where I'm going and telling me I have an attitude when I don't tell her. When I am home, I sit in my car roughly 80% of the time and browse Reddit or watch YouTube videos and smoke. You guys are my escape. I am almost 30. It's not about the money. It's that she treats me this way and is still going to fuck me in the end. She knows I struggle to pay the bills every month because I'm taking care of an extra person. That when my mother was pregnant, teenage pregnancy, with me, she drank and did drugs because she never wanted to be pregnant with me and was planning on leaving my dad, which she did a year after she had me. She went to an abortion clinic but couldn't go through with it. She doesn't know I know, and I will never tell her I know. I didn't find out until well into my adulthood and hold no hate for her. Regardless of what she did when she was young, she raised me the best she could and gave me and my older sibling everything she could and was a hard-working mom. Edit. Getting a fair amount of questions about my health or negative side effects from mother's drug use and alcohol abuse while pregnant with me. To answer your questions, I have not had any notable side effects from the substance abuse. I'm a little on the tall side, 6 feet 4 inches, but other than that I'm pretty average with no mutations or physiological problems. My dad told me that my mom has embezzled a lot of money from the places she used to work. They both also did drugs. My dad claimed he did it for recreation and could stop anytime. Mom was different. And he said she had to have it. This explains her fits of rage growing up. Oh, asked dad how mom never got caught and he won't give any more details. That my mom and I make the same sounds when we climax. I really need to move out. And my parents really need to learn to close doors. That my grandfather was into bestiality. When I was a teen and still visited my grandparents' house, I would log into YouTube with my own account on the family computer there because it was convenient. One day I forgot to sign out before going back home, and for about 5 days, I stayed over at my grandparents every weekend. I was able to see the kind of stuff my grandpa was searching for on YouTube because he didn't know where else to find this kind of stuff. I know I could have just paused my search history, but I was sick and yet curious how far this would go. I overheard my dad saying that he thinks I'm a failure. That really hurt. Even though I worked my ass off to get into an elite private school, volunteer, make honor roll, and I'm doing better than he ever did at my age. At my age, he was running from the cops, getting drunk, and never finished high school. My boss is being pushed out of the company. I'm in line to take her spot. She fought hard for me to be on the team and the higher ups sat me down and told me to my face she was gonna try to fire me, which is absolutely not true. She has a kid in the hospital and another with OCD. They're firing her because she won't ever work overtime because she's gotta take care of him. I wanna tell her so she can lodge a case, but I also wanna keep my head down. Fuck all this. My dad has been growing some apparently fantastic weed for over 50 years now. That's how he made car payments when he was unemployed for a few years. Even though he could have worked but didn't. He's got a lot of nice things that are above his employment level. Didn't register why until mom told us who used to be her supplier when she was in her hippie days. Last I checked, years ago, he had the trust of numerous private landowners and the keys to the gates. They let him build and maintain feed plots for deer and turkey, so he can have his own private hunting land and be out on his own. But I'm pretty sure I know how he pays and is paid now. Real country. This place. Fenced off gates to roads you have to go on foot through thick foliage to get around the gate that's blocking the only road in. Good 10 miles from the nearest police station. Some of those plots. As close as he is to the sheriff. I'm pretty sure he gets passes from the law for various reasons. My dad. This boring loner who's never been in trouble in his life. A real square who married a free love hippie. A weed outlaw. That my superior officer, who's a massive dick, is cheating on his wife of I think 15 years with the female patrol sergeant in our police department. I could literally ruin his life if I wanted to. Everyone basically hates him anyway, but still I haven't built up the nerve to face him. But if he's being a dick, I might tell him that. I know that'll shut him up for a bit. When my dad died, the associate pastor of my mom's church spoke and talked about how devastating cancer is. That pastor used to attend a different church, but had to leave after she faked cancer for 2 years. Her husband left her and her daughter disowned her after they found out. My mom was the secretary at the church, so she knew and had already told me. And my dad's funeral was only like 2 years after that. I would have walked up to the podium and punched her in the face were it not disrespectful to my parents. Edit. It feels so good to get this off my chest. It happened 10 years ago and I haven't talked about it to anyone except for my wife. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks this is shitty. My sister was trying to flirt with this guy at a bar but then lost him in the crowd. She went to the bar to have a drink and see if he'd come back. This other guy walked up and she chatted with him to have a reason to stay and look for the other guy. She shrugged and thought, he'll do, I guess. They just got back from their honeymoon. I read my mom's diary from 2002 when I was 9. Found out that she got an abortion when she was a teen. Didn't understand it at the time. But now I do. And I'm feeling kind of guilty for all the times I asked for a sibling. My COO is supposed to be retiring soon and I'm going to be promoted to a training position under the CEO. My cousin has a half sister she doesn't know about. The sister is a stripper in Atlantic City with 3 kids, everyone knows but her. Every petty little secret my wife's family has. Those little things like, don't tell Anne, but Bob spent too much money on his new car. The secret gets spread around quickly but no one will talk about it openly. One of my family members killed someone because they robbed them. They got drunk and told me. Also, I have a brother that lives in the next state over and my parent never even bothered to try to be there for them. Alcohol brings some pretty dark things to light. My dad takes pictures of women's asses in public. He thinks he's really good at hiding it but it's super obvious. Honestly, catching him doing this has kinda soured our relationship. I never want to be anywhere with him without my mom because I know he might do it. I feel physically ill whenever I see it. That my fiance's parents don't really like mine. I don't mind though. If anything, I feel vindicated. I'm 60. My GF is 59. About 40 years ago she wrote a book that became a bestseller. The celebrity freaked her out. She changed her name, moved to a small town, ignored everyone from her past. She doesn't know I know about it. My dad, an Indian man who's always preached the evils of drugs, smokes weed with my neighbors. That my husband was having an affair with his ex the whole time we have been together and he got her pregnant while I was pregnant. He has a fucking kid with this cunt. I don't know how to deal with it other than telling my daughter she has a half sister when she turns 18. I found out on my daughter's 4th birthday in October last year because his ex texted me and told me. My father had an affair on my mother when she was pregnant with my sister, she's 16 now, and had a love child. I reached out to the family about 6 years ago cause I wanted to get to know them. Only to find out my little brother had drowned into the family pool when he was 6 years old. I'm a swimming instructor now. My grandparents ran a pedophile ring using my mom and her sisters. Which is why my mom never talks about them and didn't let me meet them. My dad's neighbor, a police officer and marine, is currently deployed in Afghanistan. Her BF, also a police officer, likes men a lot. Went to a gay bar with my brother, who's gay, and guess who's there? Yup, neighbor's BF. Sloppy drunk. Making out with a bunch of dudes, okay. Like 2 or 3. Then there's this biker guy that seems to stop over every other day. Rather large. Definitely looks like a stereotypical biker gang member. I'm like 90% sure that he goes over to fuck the BF. It's never more than a half-hour stay and it only started happening the week after she deployed. Just found out from my mom. My boyfriend's mom used to service all the men at a local fire department. Unmarried or married. Some of the men even got in trouble and were suspended. That my mom and dad love my nephew who lives with us more than me. How do I know that? I heard them talking in bed. Edit. 1 to anyone wondering, I don't really care, it doesn't affect me in any way and I'm used to it. I have good grades, friends, and I'm happy, so yeah. I saw my mom's phone when she left it open once. It was texts to my dad, detailing how she thought I would never make it because I was too much of an anxious mess. She kept saying how I would never make it and never move out of the house and how she didn't believe I would ever get better. Well, guess who is moving out in a month? An older relative of mine was possibly a hitman in the mafia. To find out if it was true, I jokingly asked him if he ever killed a man and his face dropped and he just said, we don't ask those questions. My boss CC'd me an accounting list. On accident. She didn't even realize she did it. Never brought it up to me. Never called me into her office to say so about that. The head of a preschool daycare is a druggie. I used to work across from a known drug house. High out of his mind. I advise everyone to not put their kids there. I don't lie and told them why. The ones that have kids there say that makes sense. Telling me crazy things that they have seen him do. Edit. Due to spelling. My stepdad watches emo porn. At the time of this discovery, my girlfriend had colored hair and wore all black. She no longer has colored hair and wears brighter colored clothes. That my dad preferred the company of men when I was younger. I know what's in my mum's will. My brother gets almost everything 90%. I once kinda confronted her without letting on that I knew I was going to get that much less than him. And she said she would give him a larger share because he was weaker and not educated. Whereas since I am educated, I was going to be fine even if I got nothing. I accepted it and moved on. Nothing is worth my family, man. My grandfather was self-made. Gave my father nothing but an education. He gave the rest land and cows, and within less than a decade they were all destitute and begging from my dad. My father is self-made and he's given me an education. I will be self-made too. Me and a friend of mine were looking for something in his dad's computer. We found a hidden folder and curiosity won over fear. Inside, there were a lot of pictures of naked girls. But most of all, cut off fingers. I'm talking about thousands of pictures with fingers that had been cut off. His dad doesn't know we know that my grandfather was an alcoholic. I don't know if I'm not supposed to know. But my mom never even hinted at it. I had to find out from my aunt. Never heard anyone else in the family mention it either. A couple things actually. Got my dad drunk and he basically told me I was his biggest disappointment and he wishes he could trade me for his previous son who died at age 2. He does not remember this statement. Also, I know he slept around on my mom. I helped my siblings clean out his car after he became disabled and we found a box of condoms with only 3 left, and he and my mother hadn't slept in the same bed for almost 10 years, so we safely assumed what was going on. Edit. Sorry I haven't had the time to reply to everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for all the kind words, everyone. It's something that's haunted me over the years, but moving out of the house and being around people who care about me for me has helped. Just wanna let you all know you're great people too, and it's nice to get stuff like this off my chest. A doctor accidentally gave me another patient's HIV results on paper with some of my test results. DR doesn't know they gave it to me. In high school, overheard my mom talking with a friend of hers when I was getting my hair done and they thought I couldn't hear. Turns out their other friend's daughter was a love child born out of an affair that woman had with another man, and her daughter never knew the truth. Her husband knew this daughter wasn't his but pretended everything was fine, except wouldn't give her a dime for college but paid for their sons entirely. Her daughter also went to high school with me, and walking around knowing I knew this total lie about her life but that she had no idea was hard to deal with. Knew it was never my place to be the one to say something though. My father was extremely abusive towards my mom, and the night she had left he was going to kill her. I hated my mom for leaving and never telling us why. I hated her until my siblings and I were taken out of my father's custody and sent out of state to live with my mom in 2015. I still feel bad for hating my mom after she went through all of that with my dad. I'm a Sparky and was doing a major renovation for this nice couple who had 2 little kids. I talk to the husband and wife every morning before he left for work about job stuff, how many hi-hats, placement of outside lights, etc. She called me one night and told me her husband died at work. Holy shit. He was a roofer and fell off a commercial building. WTF. Poor lady and poor kids. My job was only halfway done. I still had to go there and finish the house. It was fucking grim. At the end of the job I was running one of the last circuits in the basement and on top of a duct. Totally hidden. I found a pile of like 12 magazines. Raunchy big boob biker broads with tattoos. I made that shit disappear and I'm the only one that knows. Except for you guys of course. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Kind stranger. The magazines are nothing compared to this. PS. They were gnarly mags. Not my type of women at all. But don't take that the wrong way. That in 3 weeks. A BuzzFeed article is going to pop up in my newsfeed. 24 people share the secret they weren't supposed to find out. Chemical plant I used to work at has been submitting inaccurate catastrophic loss estimates for decades. Emergency plans they submit estimate a few thousand casualties if everything went tits up and exploded. One of the old-timer supervisors, 40 plus years there at the time, pulled up an overhead view of the plant and circled an area about 1/4 of a mile in diameter. That'd be the crater. Everything in about 3 miles be dead outright. Depending on the wind and what all got mixed together. Another 10 to 20 miles would need SCBA within an hour. Probably 75,000. Worst case. Everyone that retired from there got cancer. I noped out of there as soon as I had another job lined up. One of my co-workers didn't get fired because they fired my boss before she could do it. Work is interesting right now. My mother was in jail during her pregnancy with me and they let her out a month early because she was going to give birth to me. She has no idea that I know she is a felon. Court docket's a public record and I was curious as a teenager. Chris Jericho's phone number. Long story short. During my time in radio, I interviewed him over the phone before the launch of a new Fozzy album. Normally a handler calls the station, pairs you up with the talent, you record, etc. But this time, I was told in advance that I'd be calling Chris himself at a specific time, and oh, BTW, this is his personal number. So delete it afterward. I'm semi-ashamed to admit I didn't. I never did anything with it except kept the email in which it came. And I did delete that when I left the radio business last year. But for a while, it was just cool that I knew it and could prove it. Even though I never did. I know about your secret affair with Susan. David. My dad had cancer. The family thought I didn't need to know that since I was in college. My mom had a child out of wedlock and gave him up for adoption. This was the early 70s. I live in China and know the true facts about the Tiananmen Square massacre. My co-worker is pregnant by another co-worker of mine whom is still married. Apparently they have been seeing each other for a year and a half and he is just now taking steps in getting a divorce. Disney World has an underground passage for the police and ambulances to take criminals or injured people out of the park without making a scene. I learned the big family drama from my uncle at a funeral. The reason the European branch of the family doesn't talk to us is because Gramps didn't marry a white woman. Which means we're illegitimate. Pretty much every single member of our family has some kind of mental illness. This is probably because back in the day our family tree looked a hell of a lot more like a family circle. The apparently incestuous and racist European branch is so filthy fucking rich that half my aunts and uncles are trying to reconcile with them even though they're basically the worst. In short, my Gramps was the coolest motherfucker ever. That my dad raped my mom. And I was the result. I got nosy one day when I was 12 and read my mom's private journal. She wrote about it. That my wife cheats. How many dodgy solar installations we did across Australia. The customers had no clue, and in many cases they paid for expensive solar panels and my director would install the cheap ones. When I asked him why he was cheating the customers, he said to me, once it's on the roof they won't be checking them to see what's been installed, and by the time they ever do, in 10 years time, I'll be long gone. I felt really bad and left that place. Oh, and BTW, they weren't even installed by qualified electricians, just general laborers and signed off by the electricians. That my grandpa has gotten to the point where he cannot safely drive. Edit. He does not drive anymore. The secret is that I am not supposed to know how bad his health is. My mom told me about it against my dad's wishes, so neither my dad nor grandma know that I know. Thanks to everyone giving tips and who are concerned. Nice try, B. The Wi-Fi password to my parents' house. When I was 6 years old I had leukemia and it broke my family's heart. And they tried to hide it from me, but each night I heard my mother tearing up before she slept beside me. I didn't know what I had, but with all the doctors I thought this is the end. Me thinking I was doing the right thing, I zoned out so that when I die they will miss me less. But here I am in September, I will be 18. My ex-fiancée has already started to see the man she supposedly stopped talking to after I found out she was having an affair. If you want to get nothing in return, you can like and join my Discord. There is a link in the description.